All right. Hello, everybody. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Rooftops of America every other Sunday live stream. Joining me tonight is the Noodle, who has decided to sneak up on the table to get a little bit of attention, literally right before this kicked off. So we'll see how long he hangs out with us before he decides to up and run. So I hope everybody is doing. Hope everybody's doing well, and y'all are having a good night tonight on this Sunday, the first Sunday of summer. So, how about that? On the docket for tonight, this will probably be the last call I talk about Vermont in length. Um, Probably talk a little bit about New Hampshire coming up, and then stuff as it evolves through the rest of the summer. Hey, Pretzel, how you doing tonight? I'm doing really well. Hi, David. Uh, Welcome. I'm doing well. Ron Man, nice to see you. So it's things are going pretty good. So since the last time we spoke, I went up and bagged Mount Mansfield. That was the big news for me. Um, Interestingly enough, I it turned out to be a rather eventful 2 days. No, this is my cat. He's he likes to hang out at times. So, Eric, nice to have you here. So, his name is the Noodle. He is a very sweet boy, um, and he likes to pick the best times, like all cats, to make himself, the center of attention. So, like I said, we'll see how long he sticks around for this. Um, but yeah, last Friday, got up ridiculously early, about 2 o'clock. I was out the door by 2:30. Is that right? Must have been. And drove 7.5 hours up from Philly to Stowe to go up Mount Mansfield. And the whole week before that, I was watching the weather get predictably, or like the predictions for it were getting worse and worse and worse. And all I could think of was, I'm going to get thwarted by weather yet again on this mountain. And so driving up, the drive was relatively uneventful until after New York City. And then somebody decided to take a semi tractor trailer down. I can't think of the name of the parkway, but it's definitely not for tractor trailers. And that slowed things down a little bit. But the weather was like ridiculously good on Friday. Like, so I'm driving up there and I'm like, oh man, this is looking great and great. And by the time I get into the bottom of Vermont, like it's sunny. And I'm like, my goodness, this could be the day. Um, if it just holds. And are you gonna go or are you gonna stay? What are you gonna do? So by the time I get to Mansfield, it shaped up to be like this crazy great day. Like, so I got there and I looked at the weather quick as soon as I pulled into the ski resort area, and I decide that it's probably the best idea to pay the pay the ticket, and take the auto road up. And it turned out to be the smart decision on this. So took the auto road up. Um, get to the top. There's really there wasn't much up there, traffic was. I was one of the first to go up. Um, but there were other hikers. And, I take the go from the nose to the chin, which is a fun hike. Um, that was my first time taking that. I'd read some stuff on, some reviews that, oh, it's a little sketchy, here and there. But honestly, after Boundary Peak and Kings Peak and that was no problem whatsoever. And work my way up and get to the top, the chin, and find out there's a field trip up there. So, like, one of the things, part of the reason, like, all my logic, because the weather, you could see it. Like, I knew it was going to continue. Like, the storm may not have been there yet, but the rain was definitely coming. And it I get up there and I'm thinking, okay, students everywhere, and they're doing their thing, and they're loud. It like the worst conditions for filming that you can have outside of weather. I have no problem working in front of an audience. Sometimes it's a lot of fun, but it's a lot harder when it's, I don't know, junior high students, because they don't really care what you're doing. All they care about is what they're doing. So I managed to, I still managed to get everything shot, but instead of shooting right away, I actually changed the plans a little bit and put the drone out and got some amazing drone footage. So I'm really excited about that. Um, like I was able, we've done a little bit of drone footage. There was some on the Mississippi Reader. That was, the first I ever flew it around. But this time, I think it's going to look pretty cool. Definitely adds in that production value. So, but once I got that done, they were sort of skedaddling, and I was able to film out, and then filmed all the way back down. Um, Filmed a couple other shots as I was working my way back down the auto road, and got, when it was all said and done, about 2/3 of the script filmed by the time the rain showed up. And when the rain showed up, it showed up with a vengeance. So, the right choice. I don't think, if I would have taken my original bit of like doing Sunset or one of the other trails, I don't think I would have had. Um, I would have probably had a successful summit, but I don't think I would have had a successful um, shoot, filming shoot. I got lucky the next day to do pickups, or a couple over in Smuggler's Notch. And by the time I wrapped there, then the rain just, like, it had rained through the night. It broke a little bit in the morning, able to pick up some cool stuff. And then the rain showed back up. So I got most of what I wanted. I didn't get everything I wanted, but still, I will say that, man, that area of Vermont is awesome. Definitely one of these places where I could have spent a lot more time. Um, so, and joining me tonight for my beverage of choice actually is a Stowe, Vermont thing, Von Trapp. The Von Trapp Brewing Company is up there, and this is their Schwartz style black lager. Looks like this. And it's pretty tasty too. So, let's see. Thanks, David. I like the cat too. Pretzel too. I fully plan on getting the high points. Connecticut, Massachusetts, New Hampshire throughout the new. Yeah, I think it's interesting. I will be curious to see if New York or Maine will be the harder of the two. Um, which high points have been the most crowded when you did them? Klingman's Dome, hands down. That place is a zoo. It's it's a that whole area of Tennessee, Gatlinburg, um, Pigeon Forge, Cherokee on the other side, and the Smokies. It's such a tourist trap. Um, like, there are so many people that come through there. So that by far and away. But if you take that because that, in a way, that's almost like it skews the answer on the spectrum, like it pushes it way over. Um, I think, if I remember right, last year or 2019, 2020, I can't remember, 2021, 14 million people went through the Great Smoky Mountains National Park. But outside of that one, Elbert, Mount Elbert, Colorado, when we did that, that was a party. Like there was there was a lot of activity on that summit. People were just up there having a good old time. Um, I was a little taken aback at how many people were on the summit up there. There had to be, when we went up, this would have been in July. So, July 2018, there must have been close to 100 people up there. It was wild, absolutely wild. Here on Mansfield, um, outside of that field trip, there was a regular flow of people coming up from the various trails. Um, I think there would have been more if the gondolas would have been open, but it was right the day before. So um, it was pretty crazy to see. Uh, like, I think if the gondolas, people would have been trying to go up the cliffside trail, and it would have been, there would have been more traffic. But there wasn't. I don't want to say I was ever by myself out there. Like there was regular traffic. If something would have beset me, I think it would have been easy to get help. Let's put it that way. So the following day, I actually had planned on going up the gondola. Like the original plan of Vermont was to go up Friday and film, and then Saturday actually make the summit. Except that didn't turn out because of the rain. So, but I figured since I'd already bought my ticket, I was going to get my ride. So I still took the gondola on that Saturday in the rain and the whole works. And it was fun. Uh, the first of the summer season, I was customer number one. So I have that going for me. But I, uh, I would not have wanted to attempt the Cliffside Trail on that day because it was just soaking wet. So, um, let's see. I like, the drone footage. I think it does. It adds so much for production value, and the more and more comfortable I get with it, the more and more it's easier to get the shots I want and to like plan ahead too and get that stuff. So, um, that trip won't take me to Maine. Yeah, yeah. That's the crazy thing about Katahdin. It's so far up there. Like I don't think most people realize that you might get to what most people like. Oh, you got to Maine, Portland, and then you have to drive like another 6 hours. 14 million. Yeah. So the Great Smoky Mountains is by far and away the most visited national park in the entire country. Uh, Almost 3 times more than the number two, which is the Grand Canyon. So many people go through the Smokies. They say the two most climbed mountains in the world are Mount Monadnock, New Hampshire, and Fuji in Japan. Um, Fuji's on my list. I would love to do Mount Fuji. I think that would be one of the coolest climbs. There's so much that goes with it. I think it was 125K for Monadnock, 300K for Fuji. I wonder why Monadnock is so climbed. I'm gonna have to look that up. Um, Peak Bagger, which state high point is the most ascents that are logging it on Peak Bagger? That's a good question. Um, I'd love to know the answer. So I'm not watching. It's not Cleveland. So it's weird because Peak Bagger is appealing to a very distinct group, though. Most casual people that are going up on Klingman's Dome or Washington, they're not going to be on Peak Bagger. So I would put my money on something like Albert. And then in the past, yeah, that's right. You, Eric, had a big last couple weeks. I think, if I remember correctly, you had quite the slog going up Humphreys. And then I'd be curious to know how your Wheeler experience was. I remember my Wheeler experience was snowy, first day of summer, and we were trekking through on. We actually glissaded down that mountain. It was awesome. Yeah, okay, that makes sense. Washington 5,500 and Whitney 3,700. That makes sense. But yeah, overall, Vermont. I wish I would have had more time than just 2 crazy days. Such a cool area. It reminds me a lot in some ways of like further north from where I grew up in Wisconsin, except with mountains. Eric, which way did you go up Wheeler? Did you take the Wheeler Trail, or did you take Bull of the Woods? I was curious. We went right up Wheeler when we went up. We talked about coming down on Bull of the Woods, but then we decided to just come back the same way we went up, and then glissaded down the snowfield for a nice chunk of it, which was awesome. One of the things I wish, looking back, I wish we would have had a GoPro on us at that time so we could have caught that, because that would have been cool footage. But yeah, so that was my whole Vermont trip. All said and done, a run up there, a run back. Overall, traffic was not bad. Stayed in a yurt on a Friday night, because if you're going to stay in a tent, stay in a big one. But it was a good time. And so now I'm looking forward to doing New Hampshire actually next month. So the Vermont episode actually should be available by the 1st, which I think is next Sunday. Is that next Sunday? That can't be right. I guess it is right. Man, this month is June is just flown by. So, yeah. So if the 1st is on a Saturday, you can expect, hopefully, fingers crossed, the Vermont episode is going to be out then. Archie, thinking New York or Maine for next summer? Maine, definitely. New York, I'm tossing around the idea of doing maybe over the holiday weekend in October. But I have to travel to Portland for real work. Well, this is real work, but like the job that pays the bills work. The first of that first week or that second week. So that sort of throws a wrench in everything. And then I have a wedding to go back to Wisconsin for at the tail end of October. So I don't know if I'm going to be able to shoehorn New York in. I was thinking I'd like to, but I don't think it's going to happen. But I'll figure something out. So New York might very well slip till next year. By the way, Eric, I owe you thanks. I appreciate it. So thank you. Bought and used spikes for the first time. I used the short trail. Nice. How did you like your spikes? I'd be curious to know that too. They were. I've got some micro spikes I've put on a couple times. I think they're Catulas, and I've enjoyed them. Ironically, I use them more around the house in the winter. This winter being the exception, but they were great for cleaning sidewalks and not busting my head. So um, yeah, the I haven't had to put them on recently. So um, let's see what else. How's everybody else doing? So Eric, I know you went and by you just said Humphreys and Wheeler. Anybody else got any High Point adventures? I know Archie, you got Delaware coming up. You know you'll have to Charles Mound next week, and that's yeah, that is it is open that first weekend of July. Charles Mound is I like Charles Mound. Um, I guess the reason I like it is it reminds me a lot of the farm I grew up on. So that's why I'm always been partial to it. It's just a nice country walk. Um, so and then you can run down into Galena afterwards and have some good food and drink. Um, I got Charles Mound. Oh, you did the winter. Nice. You can see you can see Wisconsin not too far. Another fun place if you go to Charles Mound and if you want to see something more or do the Apple River Canyon or Apple River State Park. It's relatively close to that. Um, Eric, hey Eric, how you doing? Yes, I look forward to joining you, Eric, in Arizona on that weekend in September. That's going to be awesome. So um, that will be a nice event, I think. Considering, it's interesting seeing. I've started re-sketching out. I think I've mentioned this before, but I've got the Arizona episode that was shot years ago, and I've got the script out, and I'm looking at it, and I'm like, there ain't a lot there. So I'm rapidly expanding that out. So let's see what else we got. I was looking at some state park, Apple River Canyon. Yeah, if you get a chance, Apple River Canyon is actually pretty cool. It's this really, I think the Mississippi Palisades too. It's a little bit further down, but that whole little driftless area there is wild. It's unlike anything. I'd like to say it's unlike anything you'll find in Illinois, but there's the part of Illinois way down south, well, the Garden of the Gods and Lusk Creek Wilderness and all that. That's absolutely amazing too. But that little northwest corner, with all the rivers and how it cut and the lack of the glacier coming through, is absolutely gorgeous, and it's worth exploring. Went to the property edge of Charles Mound, but I still count it. Uninvade on another. Yeah, that's the thing. I will say this, Eric, if you ever get a chance to go back to it, it's worth it, I think. I mean, it's such it's really weird that it's like one of the more exclusive high points in the country. Um, I have um, this this fantasy that if the Wobbles ever decide to like sell it, maybe I'll buy that farm. So when I did Iowa's High Point, I only drove 10 miles inside of Iowa. Yes, because it's right across the border. You just popped out from Minnesota. You don't have to go. Yeah, because you probably went on 30, or was it 90, like through Albert Lee and all that, and just took that all the way over. And then you come down. I can't think of the road, but it's so much easier in some cases to go through Minnesota and then come down to get to Sibley, Iowa, than it is to like cut across Iowa on 80 and then pop up. Is it 80 or is it 7? I can't remember. I think it is 80. But yeah, because it's just hanging out in that little corner up there. So let's see what else is going on of note. We are still diligent. Hey, Bill, welcome. Again, glad you're here. We are still diligently working on that Puerto Rico episode. It's taken longer than both Sil and I thought, but that's okay. Um, that's why you're all going to get Vermont sooner rather than later, and you might get New Hampshire sooner rather than later. So, and then yeah, we'll keep trucking on. And I know I've promised folks like, oh yes, Pluto's coming, and it still is at some point. I do need to get that series wrapped. Um, Other than that, let's see. I'm really hoping that um, I'm really hoping that when I do New Hampshire next month, I'm able to capture a bit more than I was able to get in Vermont. I'm hoping for better weather. So it would be awesome to get 2 great days, which is funny to say with New Hampshire, because that particular area the weather can be wild. So um, we'll see what we get. I can't remember, the convention's coming up, I think at the end of July. Um, and I know there were a couple folks here that were thinking about attending. Um, I don't know if I'm going to be able to make it because I believe we are going to be further down south at that time on a beach. So I will be sitting on a beach chair, reading a book, and having a tasty beverage of my choice. Yeah, the 20th, 22nd of July. Okay. Yes, um, we will be on the road to Florida at that time. Ron, man, when I did New Hampshire, it was a clear day, but there are 50-mile-per-hour wind gusts at the summit. Yeah, I'm thinking, you know, I'm trying to figure out some of the drone shots, and I'm trying to figure out, looking up, other people's how they did it. I don't even know if it's permitted up on the summit of that, but I'm going to have to do a little more research um, to make sure I can get that sorted out. I do know, like, when we do Arizona, that ain't going to happen because it's wilderness. So we're sort of, I'll have to pick out I'll have to get the shots for it for Humphreys in a different way or from a distance. So either way, we'll get something. So there is a post office up there. There is also, in addition to the observatory, I can't remember if there's still a restaurant up there or not. I do know, I have a feeling that when I go in July, that it will be a popular thing. Why do you pursue high pointing? I asked myself this question. Oh, it's funny, Eric. I've been thinking a lot about that with the whole Titan thing recently, because this is a sport. Yeah, some of these are ridiculously easy, but there is always sort of a degree of danger to it. I mean, especially if you're going to travel distances. And, in some of these peaks, let's say Granite, Montana, or even Mount Washington, since we're talking about New Hampshire, that there is a sense of, there is danger. I mean, I didn't get into it necessarily. It's an interesting question. I think the reason I got into it 10 years ago was I wanted something new and different, excuse me, than what I had been doing. I had, 10 years ago, I had done the things I wanted to do in triathlon. I did an Ironman. I ran marathons. I just wanted a different thing, something that would take me to new places. And that this appealed to me. It appeals to my weird sense of, is London cool? Yes, it is cool. But, so is some small little town on the western coast of Ireland, for me, would hold the same sort of appeal. That makes sense. And high pointing definitely fits that category. I mean, Hoosier Hill, the one I always use because that was the first one, that's not exactly what you would call a tourist trap. So, but for me, that sense of place, and it's become so much more than just, hey, I'm going to do these and I'm going to check them off the list. Um, now, and the whole web series added to that. Um, and it added, like, once I was able to start doing stuff with friends, um, like out west with Eric and Brett and Amy and Jess, and that became this became I don't want to say became an excuse to hang out, but it's sure a nice excuse to hang out, and we do something interesting. Um, and I find that story just as compelling as the story that I'm sharing about the place. I don't know if that quite answers the question. I'm sort of all over. Um, so let's see. Hopefully, Eric, that answers a bit of the question. I'd love to know your thoughts on it too. I mean, there's something very human about wanting to push yourself a little bit further, and to prove that maybe you still got it, maybe you don't. But for me, this is all wrapped up in going to new places, hanging out with friends, sharing something interesting, um, and just being there, I guess. So I started this as a kind of challenge myself, just to see how many I can get to the top of. I'm afraid of heights. That's where the challenge might come into play for some. That is, it's funny. I don't necessarily like going up tall buildings, but I got no problem going up a mountain. I feel that, I don't know what it is. I feel like you have more, and this is an illusion. This is not true. You have more control on the mountain. That is, I don't think you do, but it's the illusion of it. How many high points would you actually have to contend with some sheer drop offs? I know Guadalupe Peak has some um, relatively uh, quick drops. Trying to think. I don't know. It's a good question. I don't recall any. I mean, Boundary doesn't have what you would call sheer drop offs, but it does have bad drops. Like if you make a couple wrong moves, you could get into trouble. I suppose you could say the Arate on Katahdin, if you go that particular route, the knife's edge there. Um, there are folks out in the high pointing community that'll say Chicken Out Ridge is overrated, but I don't think it is. I have yet to experience it, but I'm hoping that when I get up there, it'll just be another thing of just being in the moment, being present, and working your way across it. I mean, that tends to be my MO once I'm there, is not to overthink it. Um, just pick your route and stick to it, and work your way up. Um, the worst thing, I remember my dad telling me, like, we used to have on the farm, um, we had a 40-foot silo, a 50-foot silo, and a 60-foot silo, which doesn't seem tall when you're really thinking about it until you have to work your way up on the ladder outside. And I remember going up that ladder outside, and you have to go all the way to the top. And my dad gave me this advice of, like, when you're on the ladder, focus on just going up the ladder. Don't stop. Don't look around. just go up the ladder. Once you get to the crow's nest, then you can take the look around. Um, and he was right, because if you start going up that ladder, it gets awfully tall, awfully quick. And if you stop and look, you can paralysis can usually set in. So I think I still remember that lesson when I'm working up some of these bigger peaks, is just stay in the moment, focus on getting up. And for those that have hiked with me, I'm the slowest man on the mountain. So um, let's see. Chandler Ridge, come on, my biggest I love and fear. The love being for a good scramble hike. I like high pony too. I really like getting outdoors hiking. It's so much fun. Yes, I agree with that, David, 100%. Eric, I think that in first world countries in the 21st century, people seek challenges. High pointing is a good outlet for. Yeah, I agree. I agree with you that as well. We have a luxury in this. When you think about high pointing other countries, I don't think most of them, I could be mistaken, and I'm happy to be mistaken, but I don't think most of them have the scale or the diversity the United States has, including the territories. If you include the territories, you're going to get the whole thing. You get everything. Volcanoes, farmlands, plains, mountains, hills, urban adventure. You don't get that to that degree in other ones. I mean, Canada is just trying to kill you. You might be able to get some of it to a good extent down in Mexico. I think Mexico would give it a run for the money too. Ironman Wisconsin, Ironman Madison, 2005. It was a long day. The funny thing about when I did my Ironman was that was the first time ever in my life that I swam 2.4 miles. So that tells you something too. So no time like the present to dive in, literally be like, well, I'm just going to swim. I've never swam this distance ever in my life, so now's a good day to do it. So swimming for me, hands down, hardest thing. I'm a self-taught swimmer. Was good enough to be a lifeguard, recertified several times, but I never swam competitively. I never had a coach. I never was taught how to swim by like an official way. I taught myself how to swim. So swimming for me is, I have no technique. I have a lot of power. So for me, it's all about just muscling it through. I don't think I could do. This ain't gonna happen. Like, that event is firmly in the past. I'm glad I did it. I will always remember it fondly, but hey, I ain't coming back for one of those. And then let's see. I've looked into country high points close to me so far. I found one. Or county high points. I thought you said country. Yeah, county high points. So, yeah, county high points are wild. They can. There's if you ever want to see a good diverse bunch for county high points, there's a fellow named John Mitchler. I can't remember the other co-author. They wrote a book on the county high points of Colorado, and I've got a copy floating around somewhere. But that one gives you this crazy gamut of, you got the stuff on the plains in eastern Colorado all the way to the, the Rockies and then beyond. Recent events have made me interested in deep oceans. The closest I ever did to anything on the deepest parts of the ocean was talking about when I did the Earth episode for the Solar System series. I talked about, the deepest point, Challenger Deep, but I also talked a little bit about the highest points actually under the ocean, the tallest seamounts, the largest seamounts, stuff like that. Um, there's so much about the ocean we don't know. It really is the great, they say space is the final frontier, but if you're looking for the final frontier on Earth, it's the ocean, hands down. Is Long's Peak a county high point? I think Long's Peak is a county high point. I could be mistaken, but I want to say yes, maybe. I do know Long's Peak is a underestimated type of mountain. Like a lot of people see it, it's right there. It's a beautiful peak. They think they can do it. They underestimate it, and they get into trouble. So, wow, this time sort of flew by. We're at 40 minutes. Yeah, so that was Vermont and everything that else went with it. So, one of the things I'd like to put to you guys while I have you here is I know I mentioned it in the comments of the last one, but if you have particular topics that you would like to discuss, let me know in the chat or let me know in the comments, and we can look into them. It would be, let's see, reaching to the planet. The final frontier, Earth is deep under. Well, that's a good point to be made. It does make me want to share one of my favorite classic YouTube videos, and it's called. God, I can't remember. This thing must be 15 years old, and it's called "Journey at the Center of the Earth." I can't remember who created it, but it still makes me laugh to this day. So I do not think we'll ever have the technology get down that deep to descend the so-called Kardashev scale. Digging down into our own crust it's not easy. I mean, I can't remember how deep this was. It the Russians that have the current record? I know we did the Mo dig like in the 70s or whatever. But it just you quickly exceed, like you said, Archie, the pressure and the temperatures. Yeah, you just outpace your stuff. But if we can figure that out, maybe we can figure out how to get to Venus. Well, land on Venus and have something survive for a significant amount of time. I'd take a day. So, anyway, on that note, like I said, if you guys have things that you want to talk about, high point related or that, throw them in the comments, throw them in the chat. We can set them up. Moving back to, I like the idea of high pointing interviews. Yeah, I actually have been throwing that idea around. I know we talked about that a bit in the past, Archie, and I think it would be, I just got to figure out a formal way to do it, and get people. I don't want to just do one. If I'm going to do these, I'd like to line up a series of speakers, contributors, so I can get enough material going. So that's one of the things I'm looking into right now. So if you are interested in potentially being a high point interviewee, let me know. I'm happy to sit down with you, put on my other hat as an interviewer. Eric, I feel I owe you a huge apology for Kings. I'll see what Brett has. I'll see what we got, and if there's something that's rough, I will try to share it with you. Let me get back to you. When are you shipping out for that? When are you planning on? Okay, hold on. Let me rephrase that. Do you fly out the 4th, or are you going up it on the 4th? You leave July 4th. Okay. Gives me a little bit of time. All right. I will see what I can do. I'd love to promise something, but I don't think that probably would be a good idea. But let me see what I can pull together, or what Brett has already pulled together, even if it's just the hiking section, which I think might be the most beneficial to you. That's another one that we gotta. I'm honestly think the remainder of that script will get shot in September. So as I fly from Philly, I'll fly to Salt Lake City. I'll go shoot the remainder of that, and then fly to Phoenix to reclimb Humphreys. But I'll see what I can do, Eric. Bill, I did North Carolina Southern Trail last Wednesday and then Tennessee on Thursday. Nice. Congratulations. Mount Marcy planned for mid-July. That is good hustle, Bill. How crowded was Tennessee? So, all right. On that note, it is 9:16, so I think I'm going to wrap this one up. Thanks, everybody, for joining. I really appreciate this. Love chatting with you. And like I said, if you got ideas or topics, things like that you want to look into or want me to start looking into, happy to do so. Leave them in the chat. Leave them in the comments. And I will see you in 2 weeks. Later, guys.